recording now. All right, so I'm Zachary Idala. I'm the president of NRHC. This is the poster prep review session. Ultimately, what I want to do is give you a sense of what the poster session entails. I'll give you some examples of posters that I can show you, and then I'm happy to field any questions that you might have about the conference or the poster sessions in general. So I'm sharing with you the NRHC website. I'll put that in the chat in case you need it. And so you're on a poster session. And if you go to the 2025 conference and then click on the 2025 conference program here, you'll go to this page. The conference, as you probably know, takes place between March 27th and March 30th. The poster sessions are going to be held on Saturday, the 29th and Sunday, the 30th. So if you're assigned to poster session 1, it'll be from 1:15 to 2:30 in the Pennsylvania Ballroom. And if you're in poster session 2, it'll be the morning right before the award ceremony between 8:30 and 10 in Harrisburg corridor and Harrisburg Ballroom. So for those of you that haven't done a poster session before, a poster session is basically you set up a poster that summarizes your research project as a visual aid in a very large room with all of the other poster presenters simultaneously. And the idea is that attendees will mill about and make their way around the large poster session rooms, like it is a ballroom, and interact with people whose posters they are interested in. So ultimately, what the poster session allows you to do is you really want to have like a 30-second to 1-minute sort of overview of your project using the poster as a visual aid to support the conversation that you're going to be having. It's a little bit less formal than a panel presentation or an academic talk in that it's really intended to be more conversational and a back and forth between you and whoever happens to stop by your poster to talk to you about your project. So in that vein, what I can show you are some examples. Before I do that, though, I wanted to just let everybody know that this year we're doing a poster award at the award ceremony. And so we're going to have judges coming around to each of the poster presenters during the poster sessions to score the posters. In order to do that, what we're going to have to do is what we're going to have to do what you will do is you'll be given a number to put onto your poster when you go into the poster room, and that will allow us to know which poster that the judges are judging at that time. So I can share with you some examples of posters. I'm not going to get into, we don't have to get into the details, so I'm not going to zoom in very much on these. But ultimately, what you're going to want to have is a visual story to show attendees what your project was about. I'm in the sciences, so that's what I'm most familiar with, but posters are pretty versatile in terms of the discipline that you might be coming from. And so the visual aids that you choose to include may differ if you're not collecting like quantitative, biological or psychological data. But even still, what you want to do is you want to minimize the amount of text that you have on a poster and try to use images, photographs, figures, graphs, and other forms of ways of visually communicating what your project was about. Typically, you'll have some text in there. Usually you'll have an abstract, which will give you an overview of the project. You'll have some a small block of text for your introduction, methodology, results, conclusions, and then usually somewhere in there you'll throw references. And really, it's aesthetic up to you to decide what your aesthetic is going to be and how you want to present it. Most commonly, you'll see posters organized in columns, sort of the way you see it here, where you'll have one column, two column, three columns. We can get into the size of the posters in just a second. But generally what you'll do is you'll have a title at the top, along with names of your authors and their institutional affiliations. You should also add for visual aid logos of the institutions that you're from. So this particular one is from Buffalo State. And then any other collaborators in their institutions would be nice to have on the top, along with your title and authors. And you can play with things like fonts. So some fonts you want to be big, like the title, but you may not need to have, the names as large. You generally can make the references quite small. You have to remember this is a pretty large piece of paper that you're going to have printed out. In fact, if you go to the NRHC conference website again and go to the 2025 conference and then go to presentations and strands, when you click on there, it'll take you here. And if you scroll down to the poster presentation format, it tells you exactly how large the poster needs to be. It can be smaller than that, 48 by 36 inches, but it can't be larger than that. We will provide trifolds and clips for you to clip your poster onto the trifold. So you don't need to bring the trifold or clips, but if you have clips, that's great because, the more we have, the less we have to worry about running out. And so that'll all be provided for you when you do it. And if you're not sure how to create a poster, we can get into like sort of the mechanics of how to do that. But some other examples that I can show you are things like this. Again, it's organized in columns, heavily relying on images rather than text, right? Because you have to remember people are going to be milling around. They're going to be passing through quickly. You want to try to create something that's going to visually engage them and make them want to stop and talk to you. And so you want to do as, to the extent that your project allows, right? It depends, not all projects are as well suited for the use of images as others, but you want to do your best to try to have as much image as possible and as little text as possible for a poster presentation, but still making it so that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, so that you're telling a story logically in an organized way throughout the project. So you'll see, again, you have an abstract in the upper left, some imaging here, an introduction, materials and methods starting the next column, some information about the genetic data that was for this particular project collected, results in bullet form, conclusions. It's up to you to decide how you want to structure your text. You can do it in bullets, you can do it in paragraph form. That's really a design choice, and up to you to decide. If you haven't before, Canva, if you haven't heard of Canva, usually they have pretty good templates for academic posters, so you can use that. Rely on your faculty mentors for guidance. You're not expected, at least I wouldn't imagine that you would be expected to reinvent the wheel for something like this. There's plenty of templates and examples that you can draw from in terms of how you want to structure your project. Here's another example here. This was one that I was an author on. Pretty standard, here the affiliation was put in the bottom right. It wasn't necessarily my choice, but that's fine. And then another one, simply like that. It's nice so one thing that I tend to try to impress upon people, and this was something that I was not very good at when I first started out in grad school and was doing my first, professional presentations at conferences for posters and things like that, is you may feel compelled to fill up every possible inch of space on the poster. But but that often leads to a feeling of things being crowded, like visually crowded and difficult to follow. So one thing I always try to tell students when they're putting together a poster is to do their best to make use of negative space. It's okay to have blank areas on the poster because it helps break up the content in a way that is visually appealing and makes it easier to follow, right? So here you'll see the way this poster did it is they actually have sections in block text with a bordered outline on a darker background, right? It's a way of breaking up where things are on the project so that it's easier to follow. So if it's like, oh, I want to know what the objectives were. Oh, there it is. It's right there. I want to know what the methodology was. It's right there, right? It's easy to find because again, this is a 4 foot by 3 foot printed out piece of paper and people are going to be, it's going to be crowded in there and busy and loud. So, I mean, not like raucously loud, but it will be busy. So you're not going to have the attention of the entire room. You only have the attention of the few people who are congregated around your particular space. So keep that in mind as you put things together. And as you can see, like the references here don't need to take up a lot of space. It's not the most important thing. You have to think about with a poster, what is the most important thing I want my audience to take away from this project, right? You should have references, right? You need to have them, but they should not be the largest, taking up the largest the largest amount of real estate on your poster. You only have so much room to get your point across and tell your story that you have to make designed choices about what you want to emphasize and what you want to emphasize less, right? And so things like acknowledgments or references or even like the names and contact of the authors don't need to be as large. They still should be there and they should, be in font size that is legible. But you have to remember again, it's so large. The piece of paper is so large that you can get away with things being pretty small. And if people want to get a closer look, they can zoom in there. I can stop there for any questions that people have. If not, I can show you, if you're not already aware, how to create something like this in Google Slides, which tends to, or similarly in PowerPoint, which tends to be the most common um, applications that people would use to generate a poster. If you don't have a question or you don't have access to turning on your mic, you can always drop something in the chat as well if you want. Would it be helpful for me to show you how to generate this in, like generate the actual size of the slide in PowerPoint? You're all comfortable with how to do that? Okay, so I saw in the chat a yes. I'm not sure if yes, I'm not sure what question I asked anymore. So let me just show you real quick. If you want to make a slide in Google Slide, the size of the poster that you intend to print out, it's really easy to do. Go to File, and then go down to Page Setup. And then in there, you're going to create a custom size slide and then just exactly make it 48 wide by 36. In this case, this is not a poster that was presented at NRHC, so it's a different size. But make sure that your units are in inches and then click apply and then it'll create it. And then you can just put it together that way. Again, you can rely heavily on places like Canva or templates that your advisor might have to help you generate these, which is super helpful in putting them together. Does anybody have any questions about posters, how to prepare for the actual like conversation part or the design aspect or any other aspects of the conference that I haven't covered thus far? Yes, I can show again how to make a custom slide. So here I am in Google Slides. I can just, here, let me just make a new one. So I'll make a new presentation right from scratch, right? And if you're pulling something out of something like Canva or even like Google Slides templates, it should automatically generate it for you when you do it. But let's say you are doing it from scratch. When you open up a Google slide or a PowerPoint slide, it's automatically formatted to be presented on a screen, right? But that's not what you want. What you want is a slide that is, you want a single slide that is literally 4 feet by 3 feet, right? So you have to tell the application what size to make the slide. It defaults to a 4 by 3, what's called an aspect ratio, to make sure it is optimized for sharing on a screen, but that's not what you're using it for. So you go to File up here in the upper left, and then you go down to Page Setup. And under Page Setup, when you do it, you'll see it's set up for widescreen, in this case, a 16:9 aspect ratio, but that's not what we want. We want to customize it. So we'll go to Custom. And then when you go to Custom, it's going to give you the option to change the actual size of the slide. So in our case, for NRHC, the guidelines are a 48 inches wide by 36 inches high. And then make sure that's in inches, that's what it defaults to. And then you just click apply, and then you'll see it resize itself. And you'll see on the upper left and upper left and top, you'll see the margin change, and that's giving you a sense of scale. And that's how you do it. And then you can start adding things like text boxes for like, the title, which you would probably want to center, or however, and then under there you would put your, affiliation. I would make it a little bit smaller. You can see the size of the font blows up much larger than you're used to, right? Because again, you're talking about a much larger thing. So you can get a sense of scale, right? If I make an 18-point font, that's extremely small relative to the size of the piece. So we don't want it that small, but maybe something like, I don't know, let's try 40, right? That might work. And again, when you pull things out of Canva or pull things out of the templates that Google Slides can offer, it should automatically resize it for you. But once you have a template in there or a template loaded, you can still change the size of the slide to customize it to whatever you need. So let's say you're working with a template that is customized for 48 by 48. You can just resize it. And the template should still maintain, its general integrity so that you can do it however you want. How do I get the scale? Once again, so we're in File, we're in Page Setup, we turn it to Custom, and then we just put in the exact numbers that we need. In this case, 48 and 36 inches, and then click Apply. And that's how you get a sense of, that's how it will change it. And then once you're ready to send it off to the printer, depending on where you go to school, some colleges and universities. Oh, that should automatically generate the ruler. Is that what you're asking? This here, that automatically just is there. I don't even know how to make it. Oh, you can. Oh, so if you click on it, you can show it or hide it. Now I don't know how to make it come back. But I'm sure I can figure it out. Yeah, show ruler under view. That might be default there. If it's not showing when you do it, go to view. And then if you scroll down under view, there should be an option for show ruler. And you can do that. I think you can also, if you just do it in grid view, oh no, that won't do anything. Never mind. It's not what I thought it was. But yeah. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, what I was saying about getting it printed. So once you have it done and saved, typically you'll download it as a PDF. So you do that by going to File, and then downloading it as a PDF document, which would be here. And so if your campus has its own printer that can accommodate large scale paper like this, like a custom sized printer, you would send it to them. Otherwise, a place like Staples is able to do it as well. Typically, you have to make sure you give yourself enough time. Typically, Staples can do it same day, but I would call wherever it is you plan on printing it and make sure you know how much lead time they need so that you're not, scrambling to get it printed minutes before your train or your car leaves, so that you have it with you. But that's sort of how the mechanics of it, how you would start putting it together. Again, I don't necessarily recommend that you try to do it from scratch the way I sort of set it up here. Um, Go to Canva and get a template. They look nicer. Um, uh, unless you're very comfortable at customizing designs for things like this. If you're into graphic design and stuff, I'm sure you could do it from blank, but templates are really useful. You should make the most of them. Any other questions or general questions about the conference, any of the activities that we're doing, or any of the things that I can answer for you? Is this something that parents normally come to? We have had, not typically, at least um, not for the entire conference. But if your folks are local, and they want to come to your presentation, that's fine. What we usually ask is that you email the board, the executive board, and just ask them, or not ask them, but like give them a heads up that it's something that you'd like to do. And so I'll give you that email address in the chat right now. But yeah, we definitely have had people bring parents to see their kids give their presentation, but we usually don't invite them to stay for the entire conference. Does that make sense? Other questions that I can answer for you? Great. Yeah, I mean, it's great if mom and dad can show up and support you. I had a student a couple years ago, actually the student who gave this poster, her mom came to the poster session. And so it was really nice actually. But the only thing that we ask is that because there are sort of like regulations from the hotel in terms of who can be where, when, and how many people. We just ask that you email the NRHC board so that we can make sure that we can accommodate any outside visitors that would be attending. Are there any other questions? I don't think you need Canva Premium to scale a poster. Typically, the way Canva would work is that you would download a template, which usually you can import them directly into Google Slides, and then once you have the template imported into Google Slides, you would just go into File and then Page Setup, and then just make sure to customize the size. You don't have to. Um, I don't think you necessarily have to have premium in order to do that. But when you have, sometimes the free ones don't, there's always like, whenever I go into Canva, I always find stuff that I really like. And it's like, oh, you have to have the premium subscription to get access to it. But you can find some nice ones that are free. Um, so, but you don't necessarily need a premium subscription to get access to templates. Once you have the template, it'll give you the option when you download the template to format it for Google Slides, and then you can just import it directly into Google Slides or PowerPoint or whatever, or Apple. I forget the Apple's version of it, but whatever it is. Oh, Keynote, thank you. Yes, that's it. Any other questions that I can answer for you? Well, if that's all, I hope this was helpful. What we'll do is we'll make sure that this gets posted onto the NRHC website. I can also, if it would be helpful, see if we can share some previous posters that have been presented, so that you can get a sense of what posters have tended to look like at NRHC. Um, but ultimately, the thing to keep in mind is that, you know, all the faculty um, and other students are there to support you. Um, and we want to see you do the best you can. So we're looking forward to hosting you. We're looking forward to seeing what you all have worked on, and learning a little bit about the projects. And that's really the most important thing. All right. If that's all, we can sign off. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to email us at our Gmail. Um, and otherwise, we will see you all in a few short weeks. If you're interested, we're always looking for students to be involved on the Student Activities Committee. So if you're interested in doing that, please also email us at our Northeast Regional Gmail, because we're always looking for students to help out our student reps in preparing for the student events, things like the game night or open mic night or the gala, which are all really, really great events that are exclusively for students. So if you're interested in helping out for any of those, feel free to send us an email and we'll put you in touch with our student reps as well. Alrighty. All right, friends. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.